Atsushi Nakajima is on the verge of death. She is lying beside a river under a bridge. He finds a solution to rob the next man he sees. Suddenly he sees a man drowning in the river. He saves him from committing suicide. Osamu Dazai invites him to eat at the cost of his partner Doppo Kunikida. He learns that Dazai and Kunikida work for an armed detective agency. Kunikida asks him about a white tiger, and he replies that he has been observing him for the past 2 years. Dazai takes him to a warehouse to lure out the beast. Dazai remains calm throughout the hour of waiting, while Atsushi believes the tiger has arrived and is stalking the building's shelves. According to Dazai, Atsushi saw the tiger for 2 weeks and the beast for the same amount of time. He reveals Atsushi himself has a skill that he can transform into a creature under the light of the full moon, not unlike a werewolf. When he turns and attempts to attack him unconsciously, Dazai activates his proficiency and stops him. When Atsushi wakes up, he finds himself surrounded by most of the agency, where Dazai reveals him as the tiger and recruits him to the agency, much to his confusion. Atsushi wakes up in a dorm room of the agency. He receives calls from Dazai, who tells him about an emergency. Atsushi frees Dazai from a suicide attempt in a barrel and decides to look for a different job outside the agency. Dazai offers to help him, and they both run into Kunikida, who hurries them to a scene of an actual emergency. A man is taken hostage and is threatening to blow up the building. Atsushi dresses up like a newspaper boy and distracts the man from the bomb. He gives Dazai enough time to subdue the man. The man still presses the detonator, and the bomb starts counting down. Desperately, Atsushi throws himself over the bomb to try and protect everyone else. The bomb does not explode. The whole scene was set up as a test to see if Atsushi was the right kind of person to join the armed detective agency. The president of the agency leaves the decision up to Dazai, who seems Atsushi worthy to be a member of the company. Tanizaki apologizes to Atsushi for his rude behavior during the latter's entrance exam. He introduces himself as a member of the armed detective agency along with his sister, Naomi. Now that he is a member of their organization, Kunikida asks Atsushi to uphold the agency's good name. After Atsushi guesses his senior colleague's former professions, Tanizaki receives a call about a client at the agency. Their female client requests their assistance in exploring the back alley of her company building after discovering a suspicious group. Kunikida instructs Atsushi to go in the stakeout operation with Tanizaki and Naomi. He also advises the rookie to flee if he encounters Akutagawa, a mafioso from the infamous underground organization Port Mafia with a powerful offensive ability. At a police station somewhere, Akutagawa returns a lost bag to the police. The policemen recognize him as a wanted fugitive, but he easily overpowers them with his mastery before they can take him down. As he leaves the murder scene, the bag he left earlier explodes. Akutagawa impales Tanizaki from behind as he angrily activates Light Snow to kill Higuchi. As Tanizaki angrily turns on Light Snow to kill Higuchi, Akutagawa attacks him from behind. The mafioso introduces himself to Atsushi and uses Rashomon to capture the weretiger. Akutagawa then uses Rashomon to sever Atsushi's leg. Atsushi tries in vain to shoot the mafioso until he accidentally activates his ability and transforms into a tiger. Akutagawa retreats but declares that he will soon capture the weretiger in exchange for a 7 billion bounty on him on the black market. Atsushi awakens after his encounter with Akutagawa. He panics when remembers the bounty on his head. Kunikida relaxes him, but Atsushi finds out the agency is in danger due to his doings. Kunikida warns him that the mafia shall soon return for him and advises him to think about what he can do. During a mafia operation, Ruro Hiratsu of the Port Mafia's Black Lizard heads an infiltration into a workers' base suspected of selling Port Mafia cargo to the black market. Hiratsu orders his cohorts to kill the workers after discovering evidence that confirms their suspicions. The base is later bombed after the massacre. As the police arrive, Atsushi heads to the scene and hears about the danger of the Black Lizard from the crowd. Atsushi decides to quit the agency. He contacts Higuchi and challenges her to catch him. As Atsushi bids farewell to a confused Kunikida, Higuchi assembles Black Lizard to raid the agency. Meanwhile, Akutagawa visits an imprisoned girl and attacks her with Rashomon. Later, he lets her live after seeing her unflinching resolve even during his attack. Black Lizard arrives at the agency. Atsushi hears a gunshot and rushes to Kunikida. While the office cleans up after the Black Lizard raid, Kunikida assigns Atsushi to accompany Ranpo on a murder investigation. Despite the agency members' praise for the great detective, Atsushi is initially skeptical of Ranpo, who appears to be unfamiliar with basic everyday tasks. They later arrive at the crime scene and meet Officer Minura, who tells them their help is no longer needed. He continues that the victim is his subordinate, Yamajawa, who was found floating in the river. At that point, the police have caught another person from the river, who turns out to be Dazai simply drifting. Minora reminds Ranpo that their help is no longer necessary, believing that his men are superior to them. To test this claim, Ranpo asks Minora's fellow officer, Sugimoto, to solve the case within 60 seconds, but he fails. Ranpo proves himself by pointing out Sugimoto as a criminal. Sugimoto is interrogated at the station, where they learn that he was a spy for a Diet member whom Yamajawa has found evidence of corruption. When Sugimoto confronted Yamajawa, he threatened to kill himself to force her to hand him the evidence. Minora thanks Ranpo for his help and apologizes for his earlier behavior. On their way back to the agency, Dazai tells Atsushi that Ranpo does not have the ability. He merely uses his intelligence and deduction in solving cases, the reason why the agency highly respects the great detective. Dazai eats mushrooms to try suicide. Kunikida receives a new task from the president concerning the mysterious disappearances of Yokohama visitors. 3 reach the base to ask for the source of an anonymous tip. Kunikida goes to the hospital that the tipster mentioned. Atsushi is introduced to the cabbie, an informant for the agency. As they investigate the hospital, they hear a lady screaming for help. They rush to the basement to find her left to drown in a glass tank. Kunikida shoots at the glass and successfully saves the woman, Nobuko Sasaki. She also tells them that there seem to be other abducted people at the hospital. The gas leaked to kill people. News later spread of the agency's failure to save the victims of the Yokohama serial disappearances. The group visits Sasaki in the infirmary, who thanks them for saving her life. Kunikida names Kabi as the culprit. The cabbie is handed to the police, while the group heads to the supposed meeting place with the traffickers. The building turns out to be the Azure King's hideout years ago, where he blew himself up together with 5 detectives after his location was given to the police by Kunikida. One of the detectives was Rokuzo's father, and Kunikida believes himself liable for setting the bomb off due to his report. At that point, they receive a request to disarm a bomb from a client, who turns out to be the Azure Messenger. The agency convenes regarding the Azure Messenger bomb threat, which can decimate the majority of Yokohama. The client challenges the agency to disarm the bomb by sundown, or else word of their failure will spread if they fail to do so. Fukuzawa issues his orders to the agency on a mission to save Yokohama, uncover the Azure Messenger's identity, and fight for the agency's reputation. Kunikida enlists Rokuzo's help in tracing the bomb-building equipment. Nobuko suggests that the Azure Messenger is the Azure King himself. Rokuzo and Ranpo contact Kunikida and Atsushi and tells them that bomb is located at the force facility. Fukuzawa contacts them and tells them that KB dies. The 3 go to the defense facility. Kunikida disarms the bomb. Kunikida meets Sasaki at an abandoned hospital where he tells Kunikida that he has contacted and invited the mastermind behind the incident to the hospital. Rokuzo arrives, though he is not the perpetrator and simply hacked into Dazai's account to also face the real mastermind. At that point, Rokuzo pushes Kunikida out of the way and is shot by Sasaki, the Azure Messenger, whose significant other was the Azure King. As she explains her motives, Dazai drops his gun onto Rokuzo, who fires and kills Sasaki out of vengeance for his father before he succumbs to death. A young girl approaches Dazai, who activates her ability in the middle of the street. The next day, Dazai goes missing. Yasano asks Atsushi to accompany her on a shopping trip. Atsushi encounters a girl in a kimono, with whom he exchanges glances. As they ride the train, Yasano advises Atsushi to be careful at night, especially of the mafia's surprise attacks. At that moment, the train conductor announces an experiment, which turns out to be a bombing incident. Atsushi goes to the rear car and sees the girl he met earlier, who receives instructions on the phone to protect the bomb at all costs. She activates Demon Snow and slashes Atsushi. Kyoka Izumi introduces herself to him, stating that she has killed 35 people in 6 months. Kunikida and Atsushi interrogate Kyoka. She tells them the Port Mafia recruited her due to her ability. Kunikida takes his leave to make his report at the agency, while he instructs Atsushi to hand the girl to the police. However, he is hesitant to surrender her without giving her a chance. Atsushi unwillingly takes her on a date all around Yokohama. Finally, she requests to go with him to the police station. Suddenly, Atsushi is stabbed from behind by Rashomon. The Port Mafia arrives, and Atsushi is captured. Kunikida and Dazai receive news of Atsushi's kidnapping. Naomi brings Fukuzawa to the room to settle things. The agency scrambles to find Atsushi, but Ranpo refuses to assist in their search. They track down the truck's owner, who may be aware of Atsushi's whereabouts. Tanizaki heads to the truck's site and infiltrates the building, only to find the people killed. Fukuzawa turns to Ranpo, who, after the president successfully persuades him to help, deduces that Atsushi is on a vessel traveling toward the open sea. Fukuzawa tosses the agency's high-speed vessel's keys to Kunikida and orders him to retrieve Atsushi. Dazai and Chuya engage in hand-to-hand combat. Dazai tells him that he allowed himself to be captured for Atsushi. Kyoka visits Atsushi inside the cargo room, but Akutagawa pulls him into the open with Rashomon. Kunikida then locates Atsushi, while Kyoka gives him the chance to escape after she detonates explosives to sink the vessel. Kunikida urges Atsushi to jump and leave the girl behind. Atsushi saves her from Akutagawa. Atsushi and Akutagawa start fighting with each other. Kyoka awakens and saves Atsushi from an explosion on the vessel. Dazai hacks into the Mafia's communications records and discovers the one who placed the bounty on Atsushi. Meanwhile, Francis, leader of the guild, perceives how the bounty approach with the Mafia has failed, though he remains confident that his organization shall soon have the promised land. Atsushi's concern about the agency's potential actions against Kaika and her notorious record fades after he learns of their fondness for the girl. Kunikida and Dazai are against the girl's stay, but Fukuzawa allows him. Akutagawa is abducted by foreign mercenaries and decides to retrieve him, despite her subordinates' disapproval of her plans. She infiltrates the enemy's base, but their number overwhelms her effort. In the end, the Black Lizard arrives at her aid and completely crushes the enemies. As she comes up to Akutagawa, he apologizes to her, to which she replies that it is merely her job. Later, Minora and his comrade arrive at the agency to discuss with them a bizarre car explosion case. As they left, Atsushi is given the case together with Kenji. They gather as much intel as they can along Yokohamabashi shopping district, primarily thanks to Kenji's reputation. After they acquire a lead about Gojo Youth Association's possible ties with the car explosion, they directly ask them at their base, though the gang denies any relations with the bomb. Hence, Kenji believes their word and immediately leaves the building with Atsushi afterward. Kenji lifts a whole car. Kenji faces the gang with immense strength. Atsushi tries to persuade Kenji that the gang is responsible for the car explosion, but Kenji takes the group's sincere words as the truth. As they head along, the gang corners them and admits that the bomb they built was used to kill an enemy gang member. Kenji merely thanks them for confessing the truth, but a gang member strikes him from behind. However, Kenji is unfazed due to his immense strength and taps into Undefeated by the Rain to single-handedly defeat the entire gang. After eating a beef bowl with Atsushi, Kenji goes to sleep.